KTN News.
Away from education matters, the High Court will give directions on whether the body of former President Mwai Kibaki will be exhumed to collect samples for a DNA test on the 28th of this month. Two individuals who claim to be former President Mwai Kibaki's children have told the court that exhumation is the only option left to prove paternity as they seek a share of the former president's multi-million estate. Our reporter, David Mudhoka, looks at the intrigues surrounding Kibaki's succession barely a year after his burial.
Nine months after the late President Mwai Kibaki was laid to rest at his rural Othaya home, his remains could be exhumed should the High Court agree with two individuals' request for a paternity test on the remains. The two, Jacob Ochola Mwai and a woman only identified as J and L, claim that they are Kibaki's children and want a share of the Kibaki estate, which belongs only to members of his bloodline, such as children and grandchildren. As an alternative for Kibaki's exhumation, Ochola and JNL want the court to order a sibling DNA test that would entail Kibaki's four children, Judy Wanjiku, Jimmy Kibaki, David Kagai, and Anthony Githinchi, being subjected to a DNA test to establish any connection. The two argue they were unfairly excluded from inheriting the late Kibaki despite being born of him, albeit out of wedlock. In an affidavit, JNL states that her mother and the late Kibaki met while they were both students in the United Kingdom in the late 1950s. She says her mother and the late Kibaki continued with their relationship when they returned to Kenya, and that Kibaki even visited her and her mother when she was born in December 1961, exactly 16 days before he married the late Mama Lucy Kibaki. JNL, who states that her birth certificate remains blank on the part of her father, further states that she went to Hospital Hill Primary School together with the late Kibaki's four children for 7 years. She alleges that she even studied in USA with Kibaki's daughter and have been friends. She claims that Kibaki's sons Jimmy, Kagai, and Githinchi, as well as members of the larger Kibaki family, such as Samuel Kibaki, who is said to be a brother of the president, had agreed to recognize her as a sibling in an unconfirmed meeting, but the female members of the family rejected the proposal. On his part, 62-year-old Ochola argues that he's relying on his striking resemblance to the late Kibaki. He claims that he shares features with the deceased, particularly baldness, forehead, ears, nose, cheeks, cheekbones, body frame, and gait.
I grew up knowing I was Luo. I didn't know I was not Luo. When I turned 21, the person I knew was my father died. A year later, my mom disclosed to me that the person who died was not my father. That was an adopted father. So she's told me she was going to talk to my father because my father wants to see me and introduce me to my father, which of course she did after a month or so. And I had the privilege to meet the former president.
However, Kibaki's four children, led by his daughter Judy Wanjiku, have opposed any DNA test on them or on their late father. According to Wanjiku, her late father's death was a national and international issue, and the court should not entertain a prayer to exhume him. She argues that it is suspect for Chola and JNL to show up after his death, as he never introduced or acknowledged them as his children to his family. Wanjiku is seeking to lock the two out of Kibaki's succession, even as they insist that they deserve a share of Kibaki's inheritance like any other child of the late president.
He did assure me that he was going to make sure that I got my share of what I'm entitled to as a person. I trusted my father because I've always trusted him.
The case will be heard on 28th this month before Justice Eric Ogola. David Mudhoka, KTN News, Nairobi.
You're watching Weekend Prime. Thank you for staying with us this far. We take a break. I'll be back.